We live in a high-end neighborhood where our home is the envy of our friends, most of whom are other couples like us, successful and seemingly content. I'm often the guy they come to for advice, the one who appears to have it all figured out. And why wouldn't they? I have a flourishing career, a wife who supports me, and a son, Lucas, who is the light of my life. At night, as I watch Rachel sleeping beside me, her long hair cascading over the pillow, I wonder how I got so lucky. Our life feels like a dream. But it's the kind of dream that can turn into a nightmare in an instant. It all starts on a Thursday evening. I'm in my home office finishing up some work when Lucas softly knocks on the door. He's 8, small for his age, with Rachel's eyes and my stubbornness. Usually he's full of energy, but tonight he's quiet, almost hesitant. I close my laptop and wave him in, trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. Something feels off. "What's up, buddy?" I ask, keeping my voice light. He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he stands there, his eyes downcast, hands fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. Finally, he looks up at me, his eyes welling up with tears. "Dad, I saw something. Something bad." My heart skips a beat. "What do you mean, Lucas? What did you see?" He hesitates again, clearly struggling with whatever is weighing on him. I move closer, crouching down to his level. "You can tell me anything, Lucas, I promise." That's when he breaks. I saw Mom. She was with someone in your room." His voice is barely above a whisper, but the words hit me like a freight train. "She was on her knees in front of him," he continues, his voice trembling. "He told me if I said anything, he'd hurt me." For a moment I'm frozen, my mind racing to make sense of what Lucas just said. It can't be true, not Rachel, not in our house. But the look on my son's face tells me everything. He's not making this up, he's terrified. My hands tremble as I reach out to him, pulling him into a tight hug. "It's okay, Lucas, you're safe. I'm here and I'm going to take care of this." But as I hold him, my thoughts are a whirlwind of rage and betrayal. My perfect life isn't so perfect anymore. Rachel, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, has been cheating on me in our bed, and my son had to witness it. My world, my perfect little world, starts to crack. I stand in the doorway of our bedroom, watching Rachel as she carefully folds laundry. She doesn't notice me at first, her back turned, her hands moving methodically, as if she has no care in the world. But I'm not calm. My chest tightens with each breath, and my fingers curl into fists at my sides. My mind races, replaying Lucas's words over and over. I can't shake the image, the thought of her on her knees in front of some stranger in our bed. Finally, she senses me and turns. She smiles, that sweet, practiced smile she's given me for years, and it makes me sick. "Hey," she says, her voice light, almost sing-song. "I didn't hear you come in." I don't respond. My eyes bore into her, searching for any sign of guilt, any crack in that perfect exterior. "We need to talk," I say, my voice low, trembling with barely contained rage. She frowns, concerned but not in the way I expect. "What's wrong?" she asks, still oblivious, still playing her part. "Lucas told me something tonight," I say, every word sharp and deliberate. "He told me he saw you with another man, in this room, in this bed." Her face pales. It's subtle, but I catch at the slight widening of her eyes, the way her hands falter for just a second. Then she recovers, shaking her head quickly. "That's ridiculous. He must have misunderstood." "Don't lie to me," I snap, stepping closer. My voice echoes in the room, harsh and jagged, cutting through the silence. "He saw you. He saw everything. Who is he? How long has this been going on?" She backs up, her eyes wide now, panic setting in. "Please, just calm down. Let's talk about this." I'm calm, I say, though I can feel the heat rising in me, boiling just beneath the surface. "Tell me the truth." For a moment she stands there frozen. Then, slowly, she crumbles. Her shoulders sag, and tears well up in her eyes. "It's not what you think," she says, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I'm so sorry." "How long?" I repeat, my voice cold now, detached. 6 months, she whispers, looking down at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. 6 months. My world tilts. I try to keep my composure, but it's slipping away, the fury and hurt clashing inside me, tearing at the edges of my control. "Who is he?" She hesitates again, and I know it's because she's weighing the consequences of telling me. But I'm not giving her a choice. "Who is he?" "His name is Jason," she finally says, almost inaudible. "He's a client from work. It's over now, I swear. I was going to end it." "I don't want to hear it. You've destroyed everything," I say, my voice shaking with the weight of the betrayal. "Everything." She starts to cry, but I can't feel anything for her, not now, not after what she's done. I turn and leave the room, slamming the door behind me, the sound reverberating through the house. I need to think, to breathe, to figure out what comes next. Divorce seems too simple, too clean for the mess she's made of our lives. No, she needs to feel what I'm feeling. She needs to suffer. In the days that follow, I begin to plan. I dig into every detail of her affair. Using every resource I have to track down this Jason. It's easy enough to find him, a mid-level manager at a company we've done business with in the past. Married, of course. 2 kids. Living in a nice suburban neighborhood not unlike ours. He's been leading a double life, just like Rachel. My days are consumed by thoughts of Rachel and Jason, the man who dared to ruin my life. Every time I close my eyes, I see them together, hear their laughter, imagine the intimacy they shared in my own bed. It's a fire that burns hotter with each passing hour, searing my insides until all that's left is cold determination to make them pay. I start with the small things. Rachel doesn't know I've been tracking her every move, that I've planted tiny cameras in our bedroom and living room. I watch as she picks up her phone to text him, erasing the messages afterward, her face a mask of calm while she continues the facade of being my wife. My stomach churns with every false smile she gives me, every lie that passes her lips. I need more. I need to make sure Jason knows he's not safe, that he's never going to be safe again. I begin following him, learning his routine. He leaves his office at 5:30 sharp, drives to a gym across town, then heads home to his family, a family he's been lying to just as much as Rachel has been lying to me. It's almost laughable how easily I slip into his life, how he never notices me watching him from a distance, how he doesn't see the camera I place in his car one night while he's inside the gym. I make sure it's positioned just right, angled to capture his face, his expressions as he makes calls to Rachel, planning their next meeting. I record every second, filling my hard drive with hours of footage that I watch late into the night. It's fuel to my hatred, every moment of their affair feeding my desire for revenge. And as I watch, I plan. I need to hurt them both, but I want to start with Jason. He's the intruder, the one who slithered into my life and took what was mine. My first move is to let Jason know he's being watched. I send him an anonymous email with a short clip from the camera in his car, just a snippet enough to make him sweat. I don't add any words, just the video. I want him to panic, to wonder who knows and what they're going to do with the information. It works. The next day, Jason is jittery, his eyes darting around the office as if expecting someone to jump out at him. He doesn't call Rachel that night, and I can see the tension in him when he gets home, snapping at his wife, ignoring his kids. He's already unraveling, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. But I'm not done, not even close. A week later, I find his car parked in the lot of his gym. It's late, and the parking lot is mostly deserted, except for a few stragglers. I've thought about this moment a lot, planned every detail in my head. I unscrew the gas cap, pull out the rag soaked in gasoline, and shove it inside the tank. My hands are steady as I flick the lighter and set the rag alight, then walk away without even bothering to look back as the flames begin to lick at the side of his car. I hear the explosion as I drive away, feel the vibration of it in my bones. It's not enough to satisfy the hunger in me, but it's a start. When I get home, Rachel is asleep. I stand over her for a long time, watching the rise and fall of her chest, the peaceful expression on her face. It takes everything in me not to wake her up, not to shake her and demand she explain why she did this to us, to our family. But I know it's not time yet. The trap isn't fully set. The next morning, I wake to the news of the fire. Jason's car was found charred, the cause still under investigation. I watch Rachel closely as she reads the headlines, sees the pictures of the burnt shell of a vehicle that once belonged to her lover. There's a flicker of something in her eyes, fear, maybe, or guilt, but she doesn't say a word to me about it. That day, she cancels her plans and stays home with me and Lucas. She's extra attentive, more affectionate than usual, as if trying to prove something to me or to herself. It only fuels my resolve. She doesn't know it yet, but she's about to lose everything. As the weeks pass, I continue to tighten the noose around their necks. I find out more about Jason, his secrets, his weaknesses, everything that makes him vulnerable. I send more emails, each one more incriminating than the last, showing him that I know where he is, what he's doing. I see the stress eating away at him, the way he's losing sleep, the paranoia that's starting to take hold. He's cracking, and it's only a matter of time before he breaks completely. One night, I wait outside his house, watching as he paces in his living room, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He's a mess, his hair unkempt, his shirt wrinkled. I can see the toll this is taking on him, and it's the most satisfying thing I've ever felt. I imagine what he must be thinking, the fear that's gnawing at him every second of every day. He doesn't know who's after him, doesn't know what they want, or when they're going to strike next. He's trapped in a nightmare of his own making, and I'm the one pulling the strings. But Rachel is proving to be more difficult. She's careful, too careful, and I know I need to push her harder if I want her to slip up. I start by planting small pieces of evidence around the house, things that Jason has touched, items I know she'll recognize. I leave a cufflink in the bedroom, a pen in the kitchen, little things that make her stop and wonder if she's losing her mind. I also start leaving anonymous notes for her, typed out and placed in places she'll find them: her purse, her car, her desk at work. The notes are simple, but they hit hard. I know what you've done. You can't hide forever. He'll leave you just like you left him. She's starting to break too. I can see it in the way she looks at me, the way she's more reserved, more on edge. She's always been good at keeping up appearances, but even she can't maintain the facade forever. I know she's wondering if I've figured it out, if I'm the one behind the notes, but she doesn't ask, doesn't confront me, not yet. Then, one night, she makes a mistake. I find her sitting in the living room, her phone in her hand, a look of pure panic on her face. She doesn't notice me at first. Too engrossed in the conversation she's having with Jason, I catch snippets of it, her telling him about the notes, the things she's been finding around the house. She's scared, and she's not hiding it anymore. I step into the room, and she jumps, dropping her phone onto the couch. "Who were you talking to?" I ask, my voice calm, measured. "No one," she stammers, her eyes wide with fear. Just a friend from work." I don't let my expression change. I just nod, letting the silence stretch out between us until it's almost unbearable. Then I lean in close, so close I can feel her breath on my face. "Are you sure?" I whisper. She swallows hard, her hands trembling in her lap. "Yes, I swear." I hold her gaze for a moment longer before I straighten up, turning away without another word. But I know she's lying. I can see it all over her face, hear it in her voice. She's terrified, and it's exactly what I wanted. But then something happens that I didn't expect. Jason fights back. It starts with a call. I'm in my office going over the footage from the past week when my phone rings. The number is unknown, but I answer anyway, a feeling of unease settling in my gut. "Hello," I say. There's a pause on the other end, and then a voice I recognize, though it's strained, almost desperate. "I know it's you," Jason says, his words clipped, shaking with barely restrained anger. "I know you've been following me, watching me. You think you're clever, but you're not. I'm going to the police, and when I'm done, you're going to wish you'd never started this." He hangs up before I can respond, leaving me staring at the phone, my heart pounding in my chest. This isn't how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to crumble, to disappear quietly while I dismantled his life, piece by piece. But now he's threatening to expose everything. I have to act fast. I have to shut him down before he can ruin me. I start making calls, reaching out to people I know who can help me bury this: lawyers, private investigators, even a few less than legal contacts who owe me favors. I'm pulling every string I have, but it's not enough. I can feel the noose tightening around my neck, the walls closing in. I'm losing control, and it terrifies me. Emily doesn't know about the call, but she senses that something is wrong. She's more distant than ever, avoiding me as much as she can. I catch her crying in the bathroom one night, the door slightly ajar, her sobs echoing through the hallway. It should make me feel something: sympathy, maybe, or pity, but all I feel is a hollow emptiness, a void where my heart used to be. I have to end this once and for all. The next day, I drive to Jason's office. I've never confronted him directly, but I'm done hiding in the shadows. If he wants a fight, I'll give him one. I wait for him in the parking lot, watching as he walks out, his head down, shoulders slumped. He doesn't see me until I'm right in front of him, blocking his path. "What do you want?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't answer. I just grab him by the collar, pushing him up against the side of his car. He gasps, his eyes wide with fear, but I don't let go. I lean in close, my voice low and menacing. "You're going to drop this," I say. "You're going to disappear, and you're never going to see Rachel again. If you don't, I will destroy you. Do you understand?" He nods frantically, his breath coming in short. Panic gasps. I release him, stepping back as he stumbles, his legs shaking. He doesn't say a word, just gets into his car and drives away, leaving me standing there, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. But it's not over. I know it's not. Jason may be scared, but he's not going to give up that easily. I've pushed him too far, and now he's a cornered animal, desperate and dangerous, and I'm running out of options. The thought of what might come next makes me sick. I've gone too far, done too much. There's no turning back now, but I can't let this end here. I won't let it. I have to finish what I started, no matter the cost. The confrontation with Jason leaves me more shaken than I care to admit. I can feel the walls closing in on me, the weight of everything I've done pressing down harder with each passing day. But there's no turning back. I've gone too far, crossed too many lines. I need to finish this, and I need to do it fast. Rachel is quieter than usual, keeping to herself more, and I can see the tension etched on her face. She's terrified, just like Jason. They're both trapped, waiting for the other shoe to drop, and that's exactly where I want them. But there's still one last move to make. I decide to confront them together. It's risky, but I'm done playing games. I want them to see the full extent of my anger, to understand just how deep their betrayal has cut me. I arrange for us all to meet at a neutral location, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. It's a place where no one will hear us, where no one will interrupt. I tell Rachel that I need to talk to her about something important, something that can't wait. She agrees, her voice shaky, and I can hear the fear in it. She doesn't ask any questions, just does as I say. I tell her to meet me at the warehouse in an hour, then I send a similar message to Jason, making it clear that this is the final showdown. When I arrive at the warehouse, it's already dark. The place is as desolate as I remember from when I scouted it out days earlier, perfect for what I have in mind. I park my car out of sight and enter the building. The air inside is cold, damp, and smells faintly of rust. The only light comes from a single flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling, casting long, ominous shadows across the room. I wait, the minutes dragging by as I stand in the center of the room, running through my plan over and over and over in my mind. Every detail is etched into my brain, every possible outcome considered, but there's always that nagging voice in the back of my head, the one that reminds me how quickly things can spiral out of control. The sound of a car pulling up outside snaps me back to the present. I hear footsteps approaching, and my heart begins to race. The door creaks open and Rachel steps inside, her eyes wide as she takes in the surroundings. She spots me and hesitates, but I beckon her forward, forcing a reassuring smile that doesn't reach my eyes. "What is this place?" she asks, her voice trembling. "Just a place where we can talk," I reply, my tone even. "Away from everything else. I thought we needed some privacy." She nods, but I can tell she's on edge, her instinct screaming at her to leave. But she doesn't. She's committed now, just like I am. A few minutes later, Jason arrives. His face is a mask of anxiety, his eyes darting around the room like a cornered animal. He spots Rachel first, then me, and his expression darkens. "What's going on?" he demands, his voice rough, frayed. I don't answer right away. Instead, I walk toward them, my steps slow and deliberate, each one echoing off the concrete walls. "I think it's time we clear the air," I say finally, my voice carrying a cold, deadly calm. "Clear the air," Rachel repeats, confusion and fear lacing her words. I stop a few feet from them, close enough to see the sweat beading on Jason's forehead, the way his hands are trembling. I take a deep breath, feeling the tension build inside me, ready to explode. "You two thought you could get away with it," I begin, my voice low but charged with emotion. "You thought I wouldn't find out, that you could keep this little secret between you, but you were wrong. I know everything." Rachel gasps, her hand flying to her mouth, while Jason tenses, his fists clenching at his sides. I can see the realization dawning on them, the understanding that there's no escape from this. You've been screwing each other behind my back for months, I continue, my words dripping with venom. In my house, in my bed, while I was out working to provide for you. I turned to Jason and you thought you could just walk away, that I'd let you destroy my life and get away with it. Jason opens his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. I don't bother denying it. I've got all the proof I need, videos, messages, everything. You're both finished. Rachel's eyes fill with tears, her body shaking as the full weight of my words sinks in. Please, she whispers, barely audible. Please, let's just talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, I snap, taking a step closer, my voice rising with each word. You've ruined everything. Everything I've built, everything I've worked for, you've destroyed it all. And now you're going to pay for it. Jason finally finds his voice, his words tumbling out in a desperate rush. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I never meant for it to go this far. We made a mistake, but we can fix this. We can make it right. Make it right, I laugh, a harsh, bitter sound that echoes through the empty space. There's no making this right. You've taken everything from me, and now I'm going to take everything from you. Before either of them can react, I pull a gun from my coat pocket, aiming it directly at Jason. His eyes widen in shock, and he stumbles backward, almost tripping over his own feet. Wait, he cries, holding his hands up in surrender. You don't have to do this. But I'm beyond reason, beyond anything but the overwhelming need to make them suffer. My hand shakes as I grip the gun tighter, my finger hovering over the trigger. You're right, I say, my voice cold as ice. I don't have to, but I want to. Time seems to slow as I squeeze the trigger. The sound of the gunshot is deafening in the confined space, echoing off the concrete walls. Jason crumples to the ground, a crimson stain spreading across his chest, his eyes wide with shock and pain. Rachel screams a high-pitched, terrified sound that cuts through the air, but I barely register it. I stand there, staring down at Jason's lifeless body, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just emptiness. The adrenaline still courses through me, the only thing keeping me standing, the only thing preventing me from collapsing under the weight of what I've just done. Rachel drops to her knees beside Jason, sobbing uncontrollably, her hands stained with his blood as she tries to shake him, as if that will bring him back. What have you done, she cries, her voice breaking. I did what needed to be done, I reply, my tone flat, devoid of emotion. He deserved this. And so do you. She looks up at me, her tear-streaked face twisted in horror as if she can't believe what she's hearing. Please, no, you can't. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I lower the gun, my hand trembling, unsure of what to do next. My mind is a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, rage, despair, guilt. I've come this far, gone too far to stop now. But something inside me falters. The reality of what I've done, what I'm about to do, crashes down on me like a tidal wave, threatening to drown me in its wake. But before I can make a decision, the sound of sirens fills the air, growing louder with each passing second. My heart stops, the blood freezing in my veins. The police, they're here. Someone must have tipped them off. Panic sets in, and I stumble backward, my mind racing for a way out, but it's too late. The door bursts open, and officers flood into the room, their guns drawn, shouting commands that I can barely process. I drop the weapon, raising my hands in surrender, my mind numb, my body moving on autopilot as they rush toward me, forcing me to the ground, cuffing my hands behind my back. Rachel is still sobbing, clutching Jason's body as if she can protect him from what's already happened. But the police pull her away, separating us as they assess the scene. I'm dragged to my feet, my head spinning, everything around me blurring together in a chaotic mess of noise and movement. As I'm shoved into the back of a squad car, the reality of my situation hits me with full force. I've lost everything. Every decision I've made has led to this moment, and now I'm paying the price. I lean my head back against the seat, staring up at the ceiling, trying to block out the sounds around me, the questions, the accusations, the chaos, but I can't. It's all too much, too overwhelming, and I feel myself sinking into a dark abyss, one that I may never crawl out of. Hours later, I'm sitting in a cold, sterile interrogation room, my hands cuffed to the table, my mind still reeling from the events that just unfolded. The door opens and a detective steps inside, his expression grim, a file in his hands. He takes a seat across from me, opening the file, his eyes scanning the contents before he looks up at me. You're in a lot of trouble, he says, breaking the silence. His voice is calm, almost casual, but there's an edge to it. But he's trying to get a rise out of me to see if I'll crack. I meet his gaze, forcing myself to stay calm. I want my lawyer. He nods slowly, like he expected that, but there's a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. He's on his way, but let me give you some advice. You might want to start talking before he gets here. It'll go easier for you if you do. I don't respond. I know how this game works. They're trying to get me to slip up, to say something they can use against me. But I'm not stupid. I've come too far to let it all fall apart now. The door opens and a man in a suit steps in, my lawyer, Greg Stanton. He's been with me since the beginning, and he's good at what he does. He gives the detective a curt nod before turning to me. I don't say another word, he instructs, his tone firm. He pulls up a chair and sits beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. We'll get through this. The detective doesn't look fazed. He leans back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. Your client is in deep, Stanton. We've got witnesses, evidence, and a motive that's as clear as day. You might want to advise him to cooperate. Greg smirks, shaking his head. We'll see about that, he turns to me, his voice low. Let's get out of here. I'm escorted out of the station, Greg walking beside me, his face a mask of professionalism. But once we're outside and the cool night air hits me, the reality of my situation sets in. My life is crumbling around me and I don't know how to stop it. They've got enough to make this difficult, Greg says as we reach his car. But it's not over. Not yet. We have options. I slide into the passenger seat, my mind spinning. What are my chances? Greg doesn't sugarcoat it. Not great. But we can work with what we have. We'll build a case, discredit their evidence, create doubt. It's going to be a fight, but I think we can get you out of this. Out of this, I repeat, the words hollow in my mouth. How? Greg starts the car, pulling out onto the street. We'll start by controlling the narrative. You're not the villain here, John, you're the victim. Your wife's betrayal drove you to a breaking point, but you never intended to hurt anyone. We'll use that. Play to the jury's emotions. It's not a clean defense, but it might be our best shot. I nod, but it feels like I'm drowning, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I thought I could control this, that I could manage the chaos I created, but it's spiraling out of control and I don't know how to stop it. Over the next few weeks, Greg and I work on my defense. He's relentless, digging into every detail, questioning every piece of evidence the prosecution has. He coaches me on what to say, how to act, preparing me for the trial that looms over my life like a dark cloud. The media catches wind of the case, and soon my face is plastered on every screen, my name dragged through the mud. Betrayed husband or cold-blooded killer? The headlines scream, turning my life into a spectacle for the public to dissect. The pressure is unbearable, but I try to focus on Greg's words, on the plan we've put together. In the courtroom, every word, every gesture is calculated. The prosecutor paints me as a man consumed by jealousy and rage, driven to commit a heinous act of violence. They show the jury pictures of Jason's body, the blood, the devastation I left in my wake. I can feel the eyes of the jurors on me, judging me, condemning me. But Greg fights back. He presents me as a man pushed to the brink by betrayal, a husband who snapped under the weight of his wife's infidelity. He brings in psychologists who testify about the emotional toll of such a betrayal, how it can drive a person to do things they wouldn't normally do. He shows the jury the love letters Rachel and Jason exchanged, the messages that prove how deeply they were involved. He highlights the trauma I experienced, the way my world was torn apart. And then it's my turn to take the stand. I walk to the witness stand, my heart pounding in my chest. Greg has prepared me for this, coached me on every possible question, every potential scenario. But as I sit down and look out at the faces in the courtroom, at Rachel, her eyes red from crying, at the jury's stern expressions, the weight of what I've done crashes down on me all over again. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed man with a voice that cuts through the silence like a knife, stands up and approaches me. Mr. Carter, he begins, his tone icy. You claim you were driven to this act by your wife's betrayal. But let's be clear, you followed Mr. Davis for weeks, didn't you? You watched him, documented his every move. This wasn't a crime of passion, was it? This was premeditated murder. I shake my head, trying to keep my voice steady. I was trying to understand. I needed to know why Rachel did what she did. I didn't plan to kill him. I just wanted to confront him. The prosecutor's eyes narrow as he flips through his notes. Confront him? You had a gun, Mr. Carter. You brought a gun to that meeting. I didn't bring it to kill him, I say, my voice breaking slightly. I brought it because I didn't know what would happen. I was scared. The prosecutor steps closer, his eyes piercing into mine. Scared? Or angry? You stalked him? You knew what time he left work, you knew his gym schedule, you even knew where he lived. You had weeks to process this, and instead of going to the police or confronting your wife, you decided to take matters into your own hands. I didn't plan it like that, I yell, the words spilling out before I can stop them. I glance at Greg, who gives me a subtle nod, signaling me to calm down. I take a deep breath. I didn't plan for any of this. I just lost control. The prosecutor smirks, as if he's won a point. Lost control. So you're saying this was an accident? No, I admit, my voice quiet but firm. It wasn't an accident. But I never intended to kill him. I just wanted him to know what he had done to me. And that's why you shot him, the prosecutor presses, his voice rising. Because you wanted him to feel your pain. I open my mouth to respond, but the words catch in my throat. Oh, the courtroom feels like it's closing in on me, the air thick with tension. I glance at Rachel, sitting in the gallery, her face a mixture of fear and sorrow, and the guilt hits me like a wave. I made a mistake, I say, my voice trembling. I was hurt, and I let that pain take over, but I never meant for it to go this far. The prosecutor steps back, his expression cold. No further questions, Your Honor. As he returns to his seat, I feel a weight lift off my shoulders, but it's quickly replaced by the crushing realization that my fate now rests in the hands of 12 strangers. Greg stands and approaches the stand, his face calm, his demeanor reassuring. John, he begins, his voice steady. Can you tell the court how you felt when you first discovered your wife's affair? I swallow hard, trying to find the right words. It felt like my entire world collapsed. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, it was all a lie. I was angry, confused, hurt. I didn't know how to handle it. And did you ever intend to kill Mr. Davis? No, I say firmly. I just wanted to talk to him, to make him understand what he had done to me, to my family. Things got out of hand, and it all happened so fast. Greg nods, turning toward the jury. This isn't the story of a cold-blooded killer. This is the story of a man pushed to his breaking point by the people he trusted most. A man who made a terrible mistake in a moment of unbearable pain. He steps back, giving me a final nod before returning to his seat. The trial drags on for days, each one more grueling than the last. The prosecution brings out witness after witness, each one chipping away at the defense Greg and I have built. They show the jury every piece of incriminating evidence, the surveillance footage, the text messages between me and Jason, the gun. But Greg doesn't back down. He fights with everything he has, turning the focus back to Rachel's betrayal, to the emotional devastation I endured, to the state of mind I was in when everything happened. He makes the jury see me not as a monster but as a man who was shattered, who acted out of desperation, not malice. The closing arguments are brutal. The prosecutor demands justice for Jason, painting me as a predator who hunted his prey with cold precision. Greg, on the other hand, pleads for understanding for the jury to see me as more than just my worst mistake. And then it's over. The jury is sent to deliberate, and every minute that passes feels like an eternity. I try to prepare myself for the worst, but there's no way to truly be ready for what's coming. When the jury finally returns, I can barely breathe. I watch as they file into the courtroom, their faces unreadable, and I force myself to look at the foreman, to face whatever judgment is about to be handed down. The foreman stands, holding the verdict in his hands. On the charge of first-degree murder, we find the defendant, John Carter, not guilty. The words hit me like a wave, and for a moment I can't process what I've just heard. Not guilty. I'm free. But the relief is short-lived. The foreman continues, his voice steady, unfeeling. On the charge of voluntary manslaughter, we find the defendant, John Carter, guilty. Guilty. The word echoes in my mind, over and over, drowning out everything else. Greg had prepared me for this possibility, but nothing could have braced me for the reality of it. Well, the judge sentences me to 10 years in prison. With good behavior, I could be out in 5, but it feels like a lifetime. As I'm led away in handcuffs, I can feel the eyes of the jury, the spectators, even the press on me. They're all watching, waiting for some sign of emotion, some reaction. But I have nothing left to give. I'm numb, hollow. The fight drained out of me. All I can think about is how everything went so wrong, how I lost everything that mattered. In the days that follow, I try to come to terms with what's happened. The trial is over, but the consequences of my actions are just beginning. Lucas is staying with my parents while I serve my sentence, and I talk to him on the phone as often as I can. But it's not the same. I can hear the pain in his voice, the confusion. He doesn't understand why his father did what he did, why our family was torn apart. Rachel visits me once, just once, and it's the most painful conversation of my life. She's lost, broken in a way that mirrors my own inner turmoil. She tells me she's filing for divorce, and I don't fight it. How could I? I'm the one who ruined everything, who turned our lives into a nightmare. There's no point in trying to salvage what's left. I let her go. As I sit in my cell day after day, I'm forced to confront the reality of who I've become. The anger, the obsession, the need for revenge, it all led me down a path I can't escape from. And I paid the price for my actions, but it's not just me who's suffering. Rachel, Lucas, even Jason's family, they're all casualties of the choices I made, choices that can never be undone. The guilt is a constant companion, gnawing at me in the quiet moments when there's nothing to distract me from my thoughts. But there's also a strange sense of acceptance, of resignation to the life I've carved out for myself. This is my reality now, the bed I made, and I have no choice but to lie in it. In the end, the trial wasn't just about proving my innocence or guilt. It was about facing the truth of who I am, the man I've become. And that, more than anything, is the hardest verdict to accept. I sit across from Rachel in the cold, sterile visiting room, the weight of everything pressing down on me like a suffocating blanket. She looks different, thinner, paler, the light in her eyes dulled by the storm we unleashed. I can't remember the last time I saw her like this, so fragile, so broken, and I know it's my fault. I've turned our lives into a twisted nightmare, and there's no waking up from it. The silence between us stretches on, heavy and oppressive, neither of us willing to break it. I don't know what to say, where to even begin. What do you say to the person who was once your whole world, the person you vowed to love and protect, but instead ended up destroying? Finally she speaks, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't think it would end like this. I swallow hard, forcing myself to meet her gaze. Neither did I. She nods, as if those simple words can encompass the depths of the destruction we've caused. But they don't. Nothing can. I'm filing for divorce, she says, her voice steady, but I can see the tears brimming in her eyes. It's what's best for Lucas. He needs some kind of stability, and I can't give that to him if this continues. It feels like a knife to the heart, but I knew it was coming. I understand. Another silence, this one filled with everything we're not saying. The love we had, the life we built, the dreams we shared, all shattered, lying in ruins at our feet. I never meant for it to get this far, she whispers, her voice cracking. I never wanted to hurt you. I want to tell her that I know, that I understand, but the words catch in my throat, choked by the bitterness and the anger that still simmer beneath the surface. Instead, I nod, unable to look at her. What happens now, she asks, her voice small, like she's afraid of the answer. I don't know, I admit, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I've lost control of everything, my life spiraling into chaos I never imagined. But I owe her an answer, even if it's one I can't give. I don't know. She looks away, her hands twisting in her lap. I'm moving out. I'll find a place for me and Lucas. I don't want him to grow up with all of this hanging over him. I nod again, the emptiness inside me growing, expanding to fill every corner of my being. I'll stay away. You won't have to worry about me. It's the least I can do, the only thing I can offer her after everything I've put her through. But it feels like a hollow promise, one that won't make up for the damage already done. She stands, smoothing down her skirt, her movements mechanical, like she's just going through the motions. Take care of yourself, John. And just like that, she's gone, leaving me alone with my thoughts, my regrets, and the crushing realization that I've lost everything that ever mattered. The days blur together in a monotonous haze. I wake up, eat, go through the motions of prison life, and try not to think too much about the future, about what's waiting for me on the other side of these walls. My only solace is the phone calls with Lucas. He's growing up so fast, his voice changing, becoming deeper, more confident. He talks about school, about his friends, about the Little League team he's joined. He doesn't ask about the trial, about what happened. Maybe he's too young to fully understand, or maybe he's just too hurt to bring it up. But there's a distance between us now, a gap that wasn't there before. And it kills me. I want to reach through the phone, to hug him, to tell him that I'm sorry, that I never meant for any of this to happen. But I can't. I'm trapped in this cage, both physically and emotionally, and there's no escape. I start seeing the prison therapist, a stern woman with glasses that seem too big for her face. At first I resist. I don't want to talk about my feelings, about the mess I've made of my life. But she pushes, and eventually I give in. We talk about the rage, the obsession, the need for revenge that consumed me. She doesn't judge, just listens, offering quiet insights that make me see things in a different light. Slowly, painfully, I begin to confront the darkness inside me, to understand how I let it take control. But it's a long, difficult process, and some days I feel like I'm making no progress at all. Like I'm still that man filled with anger and hate, unable to let go of the pain. Other days, I feel like maybe, just maybe, there's a way out of this, a way to be a better person for Lucas, if not for myself. 6 months pass, then a year. Rachel sends me the divorce papers and I sign them without hesitation. It's a clean break, no drama, no drawn-out negotiations. She's given me full access to Lucas and I try to be there for him as much as I can, even from behind bars. But it's not enough. I know that. He deserves better than a father who's locked away. A father who let his anger destroy their family. And that knowledge gnaws at me, eats away at whatever peace I've managed to find. One day I receive a letter from Rachel. It's short, just a few lines, but it cuts deeper than anything I've felt in a long time. John, I'm not asking for forgiveness, and I'm not offering it. We both made mistakes, and we're both paying for them. But I need you to know that I'm doing my best to move on. For Lucas's sake. He deserves a chance at a normal life. And I'm going to give it to him. I hope you find a way to move on too. Rachel. I read the letter over and over, each word burning into my mind. She's right. We're both paying for what we did, and there's no going back. But the idea of moving on, of finding a way to live with myself after everything that's happened, seems impossible. Still I try. I throw myself into the therapy sessions, into the self-help books that the prison library stocks. I start writing letters to Lucas, not just the short, perfunctory notes I've been sending, but real letters, ones that talk about my feelings, my regrets, my hopes for the future. I don't know if he'll ever read them, but it feels good to get the words out, to put them down on paper. Slowly, painfully, I begin to see a way forward. It's not a clear path, not by any means, but it's there, a faint glimmer of hope in the darkness. The day of my release finally arrives. I step out of the prison gates, the sun blinding after so many months inside. I feel a strange mix of emotions, relief, fear, uncertainty. The world has changed while I've been inside, and I don't know how I fit into it anymore. Rachel is waiting for me, leaning against her car, her arms crossed over her chest. She looks different, stronger, more self-assured. She doesn't smile when she sees me, just nods, as if acknowledging that this is the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. I thought you might need a ride, she says, her tone neutral. Thanks, I reply, my voice rough from disuse. We drive in silence, the tension between us thick and palpable. But it's different now. There's no anger, no bitterness, just a mutual understanding that we've both been through hell and come out the other side, scarred but still standing. She drops me off at a small apartment. I've rented a place to start over, to rebuild. Before I get out of the car, she finally speaks. You should come see Lucas soon. He misses you. I nod, my heart aching at the thought of my son, at the idea that I might still have a chance to be a father to him. I will. She doesn't say goodbye, just drives away, leaving me standing on the curb, my few belongings in a bag at my feet. As I climb the stairs to my apartment, I think about everything that's happened, about the choices I made, the consequences I'll live with for the rest of my life. The scars are still there, deep and painful, but they're starting to heal. And for the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, I can start to rebuild, to find a way to live with what I've done, to be a father to Lucas, to find some kind of peace. It's not much, but it's a start. And right now, that's all I can ask for. It's been 6 months since my release, and the world still feels foreign to me. Every morning I wake up to the unfamiliarity of my own life, a stark contrast to the man I once was. The weight of everything I've done presses down on me like a constant, unrelenting force, but I'm still here, still breathing, still trying to piece together what's left of my life. I spend most of my days in my small apartment, trying to make sense of the silence. It's deafening, a constant reminder of what I've lost. The life I had, the wife, the house, the friends, the respect, it's all gone, shattered beyond repair. What's left is a shell, a shadow of who I used to be, but I'm learning to live with it, to accept the emptiness as part of my new reality. I've been seeing the therapist regularly, trying to untangle the mess in my head. It's slow work, and there are days when it feels like I'm going nowhere, like I'm stuck in the same cycle of guilt and regret. But there are also days when I feel a flicker of something else, something that feels almost like hope. It's fragile, barely there, but it's enough to keep me going. Rachel and I are civil. We speak occasionally, mostly about Lucas. She's moved on, as I knew she would. She deserves to, after everything I've put her through. She's strong, stronger than I ever gave her credit for, and she's doing her best to give Lucas the stability he needs, something I failed to provide. I try not to think too much about her life without me, about the possibility that she might find someone else. It's none of my business anymore. Lucas visits on weekends. He's growing up so fast, And every time I see him, I'm struck by how much I've missed. He's still quiet around me, still a little distant, but there are moments when I catch a glimpse of the boy he used to be, the boy who looked up to me, who believed I could do no wrong. I know I've lost that part of him, and it kills me. But I'm trying to rebuild, to show him that I'm still his father, that I still love him more than anything. One Saturday, we're sitting on the worn couch in my apartment, watching a baseball game. The silence between us is comfortable, and I'm grateful for that. But then Lucas turns to me, his face serious, his eyes searching mine. "Dad," he says, his voice steady, "do you regret it?" Now, the question catches me off guard, and I feel a lump form in my throat. I look at him, at his earnest face, and I know he deserves the truth. Every day I admit, my voice rough. I regret it every single day. He nods, absorbing my words, and I can see the wheels turning in his mind. He's trying to make sense of everything, trying to understand who I am now, and who I was when I made those terrible choices. But I want to tell him that I'm different, that I've changed, but I don't know if that's true. I'm still figuring it out myself. "I miss you," Daddy says quietly, and the words hit me like a punch to the gut. "I miss you too, buddy," I say, my voice thick with emotion. "More than you know." It's a small moment, but it feels monumental, like a step towards something better. We watch the rest of the game in silence, but the air between us feels lighter, less strained. Maybe, just maybe, we're starting to heal. As the months pass, I find myself thinking more and more about the future. It's a concept that once felt impossible, something I couldn't even begin to contemplate. But now, it feels like a challenge, like something I need to face head on. I know I'll never be able to fully escape the consequences of my actions. They're a part of me, etched into my skin like a permanent scar. But I'm starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, I can build something new, something that isn't defined by the mistakes I've made. I start looking for work, something to give my days structure, to pull me out of the endless cycle of self-reflection. It's not easy. My past is something I can't hide, and most people aren't willing to give a man like me a second chance. But I'm persistent, and eventually I find a job at a local hardware store. It's not glamorous, and it's a far cry from the life I once had, but it's honest work. It keeps me busy, keeps my mind from wandering too far into the darkness. I also start volunteering at a community center, helping out with youth programs. It's fulfilling in a way I didn't expect, in a way that feels almost like redemption. These kids don't know who I am, don't care about my past. They just see a man who's willing to listen, to help. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm doing something good, something that matters. There are still bad days when the weight of everything threatens to crush me, when I can't see a way forward, but they're becoming less frequent. And when they do come, I've learned to ride them out, to let them pass without letting them pull me under. One evening, as I'm locking up the store, I receive a call from Rachel. She sounds hesitant, like she's not sure if she should be calling, but there's something in her voice that makes me listen closely. "John," she says, "I wanted to let you know. I'm getting remarried." The words hang in the air between us, and for a moment, I don't know how to. There's a pang of something, jealousy, maybe, or regret, but it passes quickly, replaced by something softer, something almost like relief. "That's good, Rachel," I say, "and I mean it. I'm happy for you." "Thank you," she replies, and I can hear the sincerity in her voice. "I wanted to tell you before Lucas does. He's adjusting, but he's okay." "I'm glad," I say, and I really am. Lucas deserves a stable home, a chance at happiness that I couldn't give him. We talk for a few more minutes, the conversation easy, comfortable, like two people who have finally found peace with the past. When we hang up, I feel a strange sense of closure, like a chapter of my life has finally come to an end. As I walk home, the cool night air filling my lungs, I think about the future, about the man I want to be, the father I want to be. I know I'll never fully escape the shadows of my past, but I'm starting to see a path forward, a way to live with the mistakes I've made without letting them define me. It's a long road, and I'm still at the beginning, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm moving in the right direction. And that's enough.